By Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
A bus without an engine. PHIs dismiss Health Minister's Gazette, saying it gives a free run to politicians. Syllabi issues. Advanced level and grade 5 scholarship examinations postponed to October. All but certain, SLPP chairman expects a weak opposition in the next parliament.
So this enhances the duties of the government in power. There will have to be self-criticism.
UNP meanwhile warns that 1 million jobs will be lost by the end of this year. No escape. Summons issued on former Minister Partly Champika Ranawaka and 2 others in hit-and-run case. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9. This Monday, the 20th of July 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
නව sunlight sakura. දැන් දික්කල් පවතින sakura මල් සුවඳින්.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. This is First at 9 and I'm Indi Variyamuatha. In your top stories tonight, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Public Health Inspectors Association, Upul Rohana, dismisses the Gazette notification published by the Minister of Health, saying it serves no purpose other than giving a free hand to the politicians to go about their propaganda activities. He added that trade union action will continue until the matter is resolved, giving them the power they demand. Here's the latest on the country's COVID-19 situation.
A total of 6 COVID-19 patients were confirmed within the island today, raising the overall number of active cases to 678. In the meantime, the total number of COVID-19 recoveries recorded from the country rose to 2,041 after 6 persons were given the green light to go home within the 24-hour cycle, beginning from 10 a.m. yesterday to 10 a.m. today. Meanwhile, 20 COVID-19 cases were confirmed in the island yesterday. Among them are 4 close contacts of the infected inmates at the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre, residing in the areas of Kirivattuduwa and Palmadulla. Others are reported to be Sri Lankan returnees from India, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar and Saudi Arabia. National Operations Centre for Prevention for COVID-19 Outbreak reported that the total number of COVID-19 infected patients that have been confirmed from the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre currently stands at 560. The centre also reported that since the quarantine process began, a total of 24,203 persons have been sent home after successfully completing the quarantine process. In a separate development, the Government Ayurvedic Medical Officers Association urged the public to use local medicines just as they did during the early stages of the spread of COVID-19 to develop immunity against the virus.
නැවත වතාවක් යෝජනා කරනවා සාමාන්‍ය කොරෝනා නීති රීති පිළිපදිනවා සේම අපේ දේශීය ඖෂධ භාවිතයට වහාම නැඹුරු වෙන්න ඉඟුරු කොත්තමල්ලි වල ඉඳලා විධිමත් ඖෂධීය වට්ටෝරු දක්වා දේශීය ඖෂධ භාවිතා කරන්න ගිය ඒ ක්‍රියාපිළිවෙත ඔබ ගෙදරින් ගෙදර පවුලෙන් පවුල ගමෙන් ගම අනුගමනය කරන්න.
In the meantime, the chairman of Sri Lanka Public Health Inspectors Association says that the Gazette published by the Minister of Health is like a bus without an engine and that public health inspectors have not been included in the Gazette because it makes it easier for politicians to conduct their election campaigns.
සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ගැසට් එක හරියට එන්ජින් නැති බස් එකක් වගේ. විශේෂයෙන්ම රට නිදහස් කරද්දී ඇතිවෙච්ච තත්ත්වයත් එක්ක ඔබ දැක්කා තොණ්ඩමන් අමාත්‍යවරයාගේ අවමගුලේ ඉඳලා මේ දක්වා කොහොමද දේශපාලඥයෝ හැසිරුණේ කියලා. ඒ වගේම රාජාංගණයේ වෙච්ච සිදුවීමටත් දේශපාලඥයෝ 4 දෙනෙක් ඒ අවමගුල් උත්සවයට සහභාගී වෙලා තිබුණා. ඒකෙන් එක දේශපාලඥයයි නිරෝධායනය වෙන්නේ. ඊතුරු 3 දෙනාම මේ වෙද්දි මැතිවරණ කටයුතු වල නිරත වෙනවා. මේ පනතට පරීක්ෂකවරු පත් කරන්නේ නැත්තේ දේශපාලඥයන්ට නිසි පරිදි මැතිවරණය කරගන්න ඕන නිසා. සෞඛ්‍ය අධ්‍යක්ෂ ජෙනරාල්වරයා සහ සෞඛ්‍ය ලේකම්වරයා සමග දිගින් දිගටම සාකච්ඡා පැවතුණා. ඔවුන් මේ යථාර්ථය තේරුම් ගන්නවා. නමුත් මේ යථාර්ථය යථාර්ථයට අදාළව බලය පවරලා මේක විසඳන්න ඔවුන්ට හැකියාවක් නැහැ රජයේ වෛද්‍ය නිලධාරීන්ගේ සංගමයේ අනිත් පසින් මේකට මැදිහත් වෙලා ඉන්න නිසා. අපි මේ ගැටලුව විසඳෙන තුරු වෘත්තීය සමිති ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය ඉදිරියට අරන් යනවා.
කොරෝනා වෛරසය පැතිරීම වළක්වන්න සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න.
The advanced level examination and the grade 5 scholarship examination are postponed to October this year in view of the difficulties faced in covering relevant syllabi for the students. The Minister of Education announced the new changes today, adding that schools will reopen for grade 11, 12 and 13 on Monday, the 27th of this month.
The Ministry of Education announced today that all schools which were closed as a result of the recent uptick of COVID-19 cases will reopen for grades 11, 12 and 13 on the 27th of July. It added that all other grades will return to school on the 10th of August. However, all schools in the educational zones of Rajangane and Valikada will only reopen on the 10th of August. Meanwhile, the Grade 5 scholarship examination and the advanced level examination will be held in October in consideration of various issues, including the coverage of syllabi for students. As such, the Grade 5 scholarship examination will be held on the 11th of October, while the advanced level examination will be held from the 12th of October until the 6th of November.
ශිෂ්‍යත්වය ඔක්තෝබර් 11 වෙනිදාත් අපොස උසස් පෙළ ඔක්තෝබර් 12 වෙනිදාත් පැවැත්වීමට තමයි තීන්දුව කරලා තිබෙන්නේ. ඒකම ඔක්තෝබර් මාසේ 9 වෙනිදා සිට නොවැම්බර් 16 වෙනිදා දක්වා දෙවන වාර නිවාඩුව ලබා දීමට කටයුතු කරනවා. අපි දීප ව්‍යාප්ත සමීක්ෂණයක් කරා. විශේෂයෙන්ම අපි බැලුවා මේ විභාගයට මුහුණ දෙන දරුවන්ගේ සාහිත්‍ය උගන්වන ගුරුවරුන්ගේ විදුහල්පතිවරුන්ගේ මතය විමසන්න ඕන් ඉල්ලා හිටියේ අවම වශයෙන් මාසික සහන කාලයක් ලබා දෙන්න කියලා අපි ඒ කාලය ලබා දුන්නා කියලා අපි හිතනවා.
ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබුණේ අර පිටපළාත්වල විශේෂයෙන් විශේෂ නිර්දේශ ආවරණය කිරීමක් සිදු වුණේ නැහැ කියන මතය. ඒ අනුව දැනට ලබා දීලා තියෙන කාලය අනුව සම්පූර්ණ විශේෂ නිර්දේශ ආවරණය කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. උසස් පෙළ අයදුම් කිරීම සඳහා 2019 අපොස සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගයේ ප්‍රතිඵල ලේඛනයක් ළමයින්ට පෞද්ගලික අපේක්ෂකයන්ටත් ඒ වගේම පාසල් අපේක්ෂකයන්ටත් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙබ් අඩවිය. මුදල් ගෙවා සහතික ලබා ගැනීමක් අවශ්‍ය වන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ අදාළ පාසල් වල විදුහල්පතිවරුන් සහ ඒ සම්මුඛ පරීක්ෂණ මණ්ඩලවල සේවය කරන අංශ ප්‍රධානීන් මේ පිළිබඳව විශේෂ අවධානයක් යොමු කරන්නට ඕන. ඒ වෙබ් අඩවියෙන් බාගත කරනු ලබන වෝටර්මාක් එකක් සහිත ප්‍රතිඵල ලේඛනයේ පිළිගත් සහතිකයක් විදිහට ඒ කාර්යය සඳහා යොදා ගන්නට පුළුවන්.
Several areas in the island experienced floods today with the onset of heavy falls. Some towns were inundated while road use was difficult at best in some areas owing to the deluge. The National Building Research Organisation has since issued landslide warnings on 5 districts.
During the past 24 hours, heavy rainfall was noticed in several areas of the island. The highest rainfall during yesterday was recorded from the area of Dehiobita in the Kegel district at 219 millimetres. The heavy deluge caused various disruptions in Colombo as well, with some roads in particular being inundated. Some other parts of the country too were affected by the heavy falls, with considerable levels of floods inconveniencing people. Meanwhile, a section between Pinnaduwa and Imaduwa of the Southern Expressway was temporarily closed this morning as a result of a minor landslide which occurred due to heavy rains. However, the section of the expressway was open for traffic this evening. Following the onset of heavy rains, the National Building Research Organisation issued landslide warnings to the districts of Colombo, Kalutara, Kegel, Ratnapura and Gaul.
According to the received weather forecast for next few days, Bureau advised to the people who live nearby hilly areas along the landslide flow paths, riverine areas and road users, be careful of slope failures, cut slope failures and rock falls in the districts. Bureau would like to request to pay attention to the following free landslide signs: development of cracks on the ground, deepened cracks and ground subsidence, slanting of trees, electrical faults, telephone posts and fences, cracks in the floors and walls of buildings which are built in slopes, sudden appearance of springs, emerging muddy water, blockage of disappearance of existing springs, and people should move immediately away from the areas where they notice tree landslides.
Meanwhile, the Department of Meteorology expects showers or thunder showers to prevail in the western, Sabaragamuwa central, southern and northwestern provinces tomorrow. It added that fairly heavy falls above 75 millimeters are likely at some areas in western, Sabaragamuwa Central, Southern and Uva provinces.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today held a discussion with relevant institutional heads to seek ways to boost prices of pepper. Low pepper prices had been a significant topic touched on by farmers when the president was on the campaign trail recently. During the talks, the head of state pointed out that key strategy should be to supply pepper as a value-added product to the global market.
Farmers in several areas requested President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to safeguard the cultivators by taking measures to increase the price of pepper during the public gatherings organised in support of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna candidates contesting the polls. With that, a discussion chaired by the President was held at the President's office this afternoon to review actions that need to be taken to find a long-term solution pertaining to the pepper price. The attention was drawn to increase quota for pepper following consultations with India, and the President pointed out that the key strategy should be to supply pepper as a value-added product to the world market. The President also stressed that the environment has been created to export high-quality pepper with the importation halt imposed after his assumption of duties as the President. It was discussed in detail how to increase the demand for pepper worldwide by encouraging new exporters and the development of post-harvest techniques. The head of state instructed the institutions led by the Ministry of Agriculture to jointly plan necessary steps for drying, sterilisation and setting up of processing centres at district level to add more value to pepper, and it has also been decided to allocate funds for equipment from the next budget. President Gotabaya also advised the officials to take steps to encourage farmers towards pepper cultivation and to provide required knowledge to them. He emphasised that the end result of all the decisions should be to ensure maximum price for the pepper harvest. While instructing to implement all the decisions immediately, the head of state said that the target for next year should be to receive higher prices for pepper productions.
For what was said on the campaign trail, join us after this break. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa urges supporters of the United National Party to decide between being stakeholders in a battle for Sirikota and the country's development. Addressing an election propaganda rally in Monaragala, the Prime Minister said that winning their respective electorates is far from the thoughts of the UNP candidates as the country gears for polls set for the 5th of next month.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa participated in an election propaganda event organised in support of the candidates of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna contesting the polls from the area of Madagama in the Monaragal district last evening.
Then මෙතන නායකයෝ මේ පාර ඉල්ලන්නේ නෑනේ. සජාතිපක්ෂ නායකයා මෙහි ඉන්න ඉල්ලනවද? ජාතික ලයිස්තුවෙන් ඉල්ලන්නේ. ඇයි ඉල්ලන්නේ නැත්තේ? පැරදෙන විත්‍ය දැනගෙන. මොකද එක්සත් ජාතිපක්ෂ දෙකට කැඩිලා. එයාලා රණ්ඩු වෙන්නේ මේ ආසන දිනා ගන්නව නෙවෙයි. එතුමා දන්නවා එතුමාලගේ කාලය තුල ජනතාවට වැඩක් කරේ නෑ කියලා. මම මේ එක්සත් ජාතික පාක්ෂිකයන්ට කියන්නේ කරුණාකරලා තීන්දුව කරන්න. සිරිකොත ඇල්ලීමේ සටනට ඔබ ඡන්දෙ දෙනවද? එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ රට ගොඩනගන්න තමුන්නාන්සලා කැප වෙනවද කියන තීන්දුව ගන්න.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister engaged in religious observances at the Kirivehera temple in Kataragama today. The Premier then called on the chief incumbent of the Kirivehera temple, Most Venerable Kobabaka Damminda Thera. Prime Minister Rajapaksa then participated in a ritual which was worked off at the Ruhunu Maha Kataragama Devalaya.
Leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, warns that around 1 million people who are currently employed will lose their jobs come the end of this year. On the campaign trail, the former Prime Minister also pledged to give a 10,000 rupee allowance as assistance to the people, acknowledging that it isn't enough to live on.
දැනට රැකියා කරන ලක්ෂ 10ක විතර රැකියා නැතුව අවුරුද්ද අවසානයේ. අපි බලන්නේ අපි ක්‍රියා කරන්නේ ඒ අයට මාසයකට රුපියල් 10000ක් ලබලා දෙන්න. 10000කින් ජීවත් වෙන්න බෑ. අඩු ගානේ අපිට උදව්වක් කරන්න. නායනේ ඇඟලුම් කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවලට
දැන් තරඟයට යන්න තියෙන්නේ. තමන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන මිල නොලැබෙන්න පුළුවන්. රජයෙන් සහයෝගයක් දෙන්න අවුරුද්දකට. මේ මාකට් ටික වෙළඳ පොළවල් ටික අල්ල ගන්නවා. නැත්තම් බංග්ලාදේශය අපේව අල්ල ගන්න. ආපහු ලංකාව ප්‍රසිද්ධ කරවන්න. මේවා අපි ආරක්ෂා කරන්න. අවුරුද්දක් අපිට මේ වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්න සිදු වෙනවා. මේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් මොකද්ද කරලා තියෙන්නේ? මුකුත් කරලා නැහැ. දැන් කියනවා ස්වයං පෝෂිත ආහාර වලින්. දන්නේ නැද්ද අපි හාල් වලින් ස්වයං පෝෂිතයි, මස් වලින්, මාළු වලින්, බිත්තර වලින්, එළවලු වලින්, අලතුරු වලින් දැන් තියෙන එක විකුණ ගන්න බෑ. තවත් නිෂ්පාදනය කරොත් ලංකාවට කියලා මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? අපේ එකම පිහිට තියෙන්නේ අනාගතයේ දිහා බලලා අපනායන්නට කෑම සකස් කරන්න. මේ ආණ්ඩුව මාරු කරන්න ඕනේ. මේක තියාගන්න බෑ.
In the meantime, General Secretary of the UNP, Akila Viraj Karyavasam, commented on the automobile plant started in the area Kuliyapitiya during a media briefing that was worked off at the party headquarters Sirikota today.
කුලියපිටිය ප්‍රදේශයේ වොක්සෝගන් කර්මාන්ත ශාලාව අපි දන්නවා වොක්සෝගන් සමාගමට 2016 මව් ශාඛාවට ප්‍රශ්නයක් වුණා. ඒ නිසා ඒ වාහන නිෂ්පාදනය කිරීමේ කර්මාන්ත ශාලාව ගෙනෙන එක අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් වුණා. නමුත් ඊට පස්සේ අපි ආයෝජනයක් ඒ එක්කම ගෙනාවා වෙස්ටර්න් ඔටෝමොබයිල් කියන සමාගමේ ආයෝජනයක්. බොරුවක් කරා නෙමේ ඇසෙම්බල් කරන කර්මාන්ත ශාලාව ඒක විතරක් නෙමේ ට්‍රේනින් සෙන්ටර් එකකුත් හදලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මම කැමැති පෙන්වන්න මේ දැවැන්ත කාර් ඇසෙම්බල් කරන කර්මාන්ත ශාලාව මේ වෙනකොට ඒ දැවැන්ත කර්මාන්ත ශාලාව වැඩ කටයුතු 90%කින් මම හිතන්නේ ගොඩනැගිල්ලේ ඒ කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවේ වැඩ කටයුතු අවසන් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මම හිතන්නේ මාස කිහිපයක් ඇතුළත මේ කර්මාන්ත ශාලාව පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා. මේ කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවේ වාහන වර්ග 4ක් ඇසෙම්බල් කිරීමට නියමිතයි.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Pires, believes that the opposition in the next parliament will be weak, where a situation where some of the responsibilities of the opposition will be devolved to the government, where it will have to adopt a greater degree of self-evaluation. Addressing a media briefing today, Professor Pires added that the impressive voter turnout during postal voting dispels the theory of some elements that the public enthusiasm to exercise their franchise has dampened owing to COVID-19 fears.
The turnout at the postal vote was very impressive. It was at a level which is approximately comparable with the presidential election that was held on the 16th of November last year. So there was very considerable enthusiasm, and the percentage that made use of the franchise was very high, and it completely vitiates the argument that has been put forward by a certain group that there is very little enthusiasm in the country with regard to the conduct of the election that is scheduled to be held on the 5th of August.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Pires, meanwhile stressed on the importance of gaining a two-thirds majority in Parliament.
The preference voting system has given rise to problems of very serious magnitude. So there is a widespread conviction that system should give way to something more acceptable. The Yapalana administration abolished the existing system but failed to replace it with any other system. It is also abundantly clear that what are supposed to be independent commissions are independent only in name. It is a misnomer. It is therefore clear that the 17th and the 19th amendments have to be revisited, because the powers that were earlier vested in the elected president of the country, the whole country votes and elects a president, were taken away and vested in these bodies which have not functioned at all acceptably. So there is a huge gulf between the aspiration and the reality. A two-thirds majority is also required to rid the country of extremism. It has led to the deaths of more than 265 people in the country. So there is a paramount obligation on the part of the incoming government to ensure that such a calamity does not take place again in the future.
The SLPV meanwhile also believes that the opposition in the next parliament will be considerably weaker, with the government having to undertake some of the duties of the opposition.
One of the conspicuous features of the upcoming election is that the parties that are opposed to us have already conceded defeat. But they have now stated that their only purpose in coming forward on this occasion is to prevent us from getting a two-thirds majority. In this situation, there will be a very weak opposition. The functions and responsibilities that are normally attributed to an opposition in the context of a system of parliamentary democracy cannot be carried out by so weak an opposition. So this enhances the duties of the government in power. There will have to be self-criticism. In that situation, we think it will be useful to strengthen the committee system in Parliament. Committees like the Committee on Public Enterprises, the Public Accounts Committee. Even if there are very few members of Parliament in the chamber who belong to the opposition, by invigorating and strengthening the committee system, we will be able to fulfill some of the objectives of a representative democracy.
Leader of the Samagi Janabalavega, Sajith Premadasa, pledges to implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution as it is when his party forms a government. Addressing an election propaganda event, Premadasa said that he would devolve power to the provincial councils within a unitary Sri Lanka. Let's see what he had to say on the campaign trail.
The launching event of the election manifesto of the Samagi Janabalavega was worked off today at the party headquarters in Atulkote.
COVID-19 නිසා සමස්ත ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට බරපතල අභියෝග රැසක් එල්ල වෙලා තිබෙනවා. මේ අභියෝග වලින් අපිට පැන යන්නට බෑ. සමගි ජන බලවේග රජයක් තුල 24 පැය 365 නොනිදන රජයක් බවට පත් වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඒකීය ශ්‍රී ලංකාව තුල 13 වෙනි සංශෝධනය හරහා බලය බෙදා දීමේ වැඩපිළිවෙල අපි ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. මෙතෙක් කල පැවතුණු ක්‍රමවේදය අපි ඉදිරියට ගෙනියනවා. එතන 13+ උත් නැහැ 13- උත් නැහැ.
In the meantime, another election propaganda event organised in support of the Samagi Janabalavega was worked off in the area of central Colombo under the patronage of its leader Sajith Premadasa.
මේ මැදකොළඹින් බිහි වුණු අගමැතිවරු මුන්නාන්සලා නිකම් මනාප බාස්ලා ගානට දැම්මේ ඡන්ද බාස්ලා ඡන්දය ගත්තා විතරයි තමුන්නාන්සලා අමතක කරා. මෙතන තමයි කොන්ද පන තියෙන UNP තියෙන්නේ. කිසි කෙනෙක් බය වෙන්න එපා. අපි අනිවාර්යෙන්ම එතන වගකීමක් අස්වෙනිදාන් පස්සේ බාර ගන්නවයි කියලා මන් තමුන්නාන්සලට කියන්න කැමතියි. හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. අද යම් පුද්ගලයින් ඒ පැත්තට ගැටිකම් දක්වන්නේ කුමක් නිසාද? මහ බැංකුවෙන් හොරා කාපු මුදල් නිසා.
Executive Director of Transparency International of Sri Lanka, Asoka Obesekara, says that abuse of state resources is a long-term issue and is not limited to the election time. Speaking during the launch of an online platform which enables the public to upload complaints pertaining to election law violations with visual evidence, Obesekara added that the public engagement is the best tool to ensure accountability of election law and regulations.
This allows any member of the public to file a complaint with photographic evidence, and then all of those things can get mapped against a map of Sri Lanka so that we can see the different sorts of violations and abuse of state resources which are taking place. TISL is committed to maintaining this platform even beyond elections, because the abuse of state resources is not only an election time issue, it is an issue right throughout. Up till now, we have received 103 complaints through our traditional election monitoring work. And when we look at this, the majority of the complaints that we have received connect to improper conduct of public officials, looking at state development projects and how those are being used during the campaign period, also looking at issues connected to the use of state vehicles and buildings. The main tool in ensuring that there is accountability for election violations is to ensure that the public are involved and engaged. The Elections Commission has been proactive in stopping violations which have been flagged up by us to them, but also even after the election, it is essential that those who are found to have abused state resources are also held accountable.
Colombo High Court has issued summons on former Minister Patli Champika Ranawaka, his driver Dilum Tusitha Kumara and Assistant Superintendent of Police Sudat Asmadalla. It relates to the alleged hit-and-run incident which took place on the 28th of February in 2016. The vehicle in which the former Megapolis and Western Province Development Minister was travelling in collided against a motorcycle in Rajagiriya, causing life-threatening injuries to its rider. The trial is to appear before the court on the 20th of August. And we take a short commercial break to return with more news on First at 9. Senior Superintendent of Police Samanth Vijayasekara, who was in charge of the Ampara Police Division at the time of the Easter Sunday explosions, gave evidence before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the attacks today. He listed out various items found from houses they searched in the aftermath of the attacks upon receiving notice from the State Intelligence Service.
Senior Superintendent of Police Samantha Vijayasekara, who was in charge of the Ampara Police Division at the time of the blast at a house in Saindamardu on the 26th of April, following the Easter Sunday terror attacks of last year, gave evidence before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the attacks today. The witness said that a team including himself searched a house on the 24th of April following a notification from the State Intelligence Service pertaining to a suspicious house in the area of Adalachene. He added that Zahran Hashim's brother Mohammed Qasim Mohammed's birth certificate and marriage certificate, as well as hard disks containing Zahran's lectures, were discovered from the residence in question. The witness said that a garage of a house located in the area of Sendalgama of Samanture came under his scrutiny first after the State Intelligence Service notice of two locations which the Easter Sunday attack terrorists used to store various goods from two residences in Panadura and Negombo, which they used as safe houses. He noted that 119 items were found from the house, including bomb-making equipment and explosives. SSP Samantha Vijayasekara went on to say that a piece of garment which Zahran and other terrorists wore when making a pledge prior to the attacks and the flag of ISIS used as its backdrop was also found. Showing photographs, the witness said that other items found from the location included 181 gelignite sticks, 5 50-kilogram bags of urea, 4 barrels of nitric acid, 11 barrels of sulfuric acid, bicycle ball bearings, 4 CCTV cameras, 7 mobile phones and 95 pen drives. He further added that a residence in the area of Nindavur was also searched following information given by the State Intelligence Service. The SSP said that 91 items in total, including 2 gas cylinders, local and foreign SIM cards, 23,880 bicycle ball bearings and a cast used in making a suicide kit were also discovered. The witness, however, said that as the house was being searched, news came of shots being fired at a police officer from within a house in Kalmune. He added that he then stationed a group of police officers at the house in Nindavur and set off for Kalmune.
An army soldier was killed and 2 others were left injured after a vehicle belonging to the army collided with a private bus on the Nugegoda flyover this morning. The 2 injured persons include a captain and a soldier of the Sri Lanka Army who were travelling in the cab. Police said that a bus travelling towards Colombo had attempted to overtake another bus when it collided head-on with the oncoming army vehicle. The soldier who was driving the army vehicle was killed on the spot, while the 2 injured passengers were admitted to the Colombo National Hospital in critical condition. The deceased is a 35-year-old resident of Ambalangoda. And the Sri Lankan stocks closed 1.01% higher today as a positive recovery on exports were seen. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee closed firmer at 185 rupees and 70 to 80 cents against the US dollar in the spot market, while bond yields remain unchanged. The rupee closed at 185 rupees and 75 to 80 cents on Friday. Here's a brief look at how the local currency traded today. And before we wrap things tonight, the International Cricket Council confirmed that the ICC Men's T20 World Cup in Australia 2020 is postponed due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for watching. Good night.